Blended workforces are one of the hottest talent strategies today, where employers are using a mix of traditional employees with external resources like independent contractors, coaches, consultants, vendors, and technology solutions, all in order to enhance competitiveness, ensure cost flexibility, and expedite business goals. But how are the successful companies infusing blended workforces into their business strategy? And what are the critical success factors and pitfalls to avoid during implementation? And on the flip side, what does it really take for suppliers to improve their chances of finding and landing contract opportunities? The devil is in the details, my friends. I'm your host, Karen Farrell Rhodes, and it's time to get smarter about blended workforces at work. Hello, my superstars out there. Welcome to another episode of the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. I really want to welcome to today's show a absolutely fantastic guest who's going to talk about how his company uses blended workforces in order to make his whole business model work. It is absolutely fascinating. I've seen a preview, and I'm sure many of you are going to be fascinated as well. We're absolutely thrilled to have with us today Andy De Silva, who is the CEO and co-founder of Hotel Emporium, who's a leading direct manufacturer of eco-friendly, premium, luxurious hotel personal care amenities, which I absolutely love, such as shampoo, conditioner, body wash, lotion, and a lot of other offerings. Now, Andy is responsible for the company's worldwide sales and operations, including their end-to-end global supply management strategy, which you all know, especially during the pandemic, we all had supply chain issues, but he's going to talk to us about that. But he's also responsible for a global supply chain for the company. And they have amassed, which is amazing, a supplier network and relationships with over 1,000 vendors and factories. I don't know who on his team is keeping track of all that, but we're going to learn today. So, welcome to the podcast, Andy.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, we're so honored to have you. I have a million questions, obviously, to ask you. But before we do that, we love to learn a tidbit or two about our guests. So, for as much as you feel comfortable, would you mind giving us a sneak peek into your life outside of work, or if there is one?
Absolutely. No, I'm from Sri Lanka, and outside of my work, I have a 20-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter.
Wow.
Which is they are my life. These days. So I try to hang out as much as I can, but because of my hectic travel schedules and stuff, so most of my free time I'm at home. So that's what I do.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's fantastic. And one or two things that your kids love to do that you like to do with them?
Okay, actually, my son is completely a mama's boy, so he it's really tough to do anything with him. He goes to mom for everything. But my daughter, whenever I can take her to her favorite things, gymnastics, ice skating, or hang out in bed, listen to her stories, whenever I can, that kind of stuff I do around. Yeah, and
Um,
I forgot to mention I got two dogs as well. Yeah, at
Oh,
home.
a fellow dog parent. I love it. I was sharing listeners with Andy right before we started that you all know about my two small dogs underneath my desk. So they've been pretty good these last episodes. We hope we'll be good this one as well. But yes, I'm a proud dog parent myself.
Yeah, there you go. I love them so.
All right, Andy, let's delve right in. Why don't you start by sharing with us kind of just a high level overview of your career thus far and what made you found Hotel Emporium?
So, as I said before, I was born and raised in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a small island off the coast of India for people who don't know. And so I was born into entrepreneur family. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. Then my dad, he had a hotel supplies company in Sri Lanka. He was selling a lot of perishable items such as ice creams, yogurts, butter, cheese to all the hotels
Nice.
in Sri Lanka. And I used to call him like Hitler growing up because since I was a kid, this guy made sure I wake up at like 6 in the mornings to do his accounting and
Oh,
do the
wow.
ordering, and so even on the weekends, I had to work with him. The old school dad. That's how he learned. So I had to learn.
Yeah, it's a family affair.
Yeah, but at a very young age, because of him, I can say like I knew I want to be an entrepreneur, and my country, it was going through a pretty bad civil war at that time. So I decided to be an entrepreneur, and I tried to work with him right after high school, which didn't really work out well because dad and son, we had our. I'm
Of
a pretty
course.
talented guy, so was he, and then the next thing, my mom got in the middle, and mom is like, "You got to do something else until dad is ready." So that's the time I decided to move out of the country and came to the States. And so when I came here, worked for hotels, and within a few years, I actually worked like literally 7 days a week and climbed up the ladder and became like a rooms division manager at a hotel. And at the same time, I was good at what I was doing, but I wasn't happy. I knew, like, this is not my thing. I have to be my own boss. One other thing is, like, in America, you get 2 weeks vacation. I
Right.
come from a country where I had like almost 2 months vacation, right?
Oh, that's a big change
That's a
then.
big change. And I'm like, if I become my own boss, I can do something about it. And then
Yeah,
I found out my uncle, mom's brother, who's lived here for a long time, he had in early 90s, he had purchased a little amenities factory. Amenities in the sense, in hotels, it's all the little toiletries,
yeah,
shampoos and the soaps.
yeah.
So he purchased a factory in early 90s, and then he learned the business, but nobody managed the operations right. So he closed it around mid 90s, and he wanted to do something. He's great in sales. I was great in operations, being my, having my dad's training. So we were brainstorming. We are like, hey, let's do something together. Then
Nice.
we started Hotel Emporium in my garage, and we both decided to sell mattresses to hotels, right? Then the next thing, it took off, but my uncle's passion was in little toiletries because at that time. So then I'm like, hey, let's get into it. And we found a manufacturer locally, and we found a manufacturer overseas in China. And then we went to China. We saw, this is like late, I'm talking 1999 to 2000. The factories weren't up to the standards overseas, and we met with our partners till date, and we made sure they got the factories to our standards, and that's how our journey started. Then we
Wow.
started capturing a little bit of the California market. Then we grew to Hawaii, and from Hawaii, where I can say now we are a global company. So we grew to other countries, Europe, Asia, and all over the place.
Oh, congratulations, Andy. That is so tremendous. I know it was probably a bumpy road. It wasn't an instant 100% hit, but the resiliency that you and your uncle and your team have done is just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So for those who aren't quite still clear, can you tell us a little bit more about what Hotel Emporium does and produces, and just a little bit overview about the business?
Yeah. I would say 70% of our Hotel Emporium businesses, we call them in-room amenities. These are the little guest toiletries in the hotels. It used to be little tubes and bottles. Now it's gone to the big bulk dispensers and big bulk bottles. So I would say 70% of our business is that. Then we source a lot of sustainable products around the world: coffee cups for
Mm,
hotel rooms, paper plates, bowls, sustainable straws, and all kinds of stuff. So that's why we work with a large amount of factories around the world. And and also we have our own distribution as well now. We are getting into distribution in particular areas. So
amazing.
that's what we do.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And do you have a large internal staff of full-time employees, or do you mostly work through your vendors and suppliers?
No, we don't have a lot. We run a pretty lean team in the US. We probably have about 30 employees in LA, where
Yeah,
our head office is, and about another seven salespeople around the country.
sure.
And I'm a part of another company called Remote Power Teams. So we remotely hire people from other countries, some in Sri Lanka, India, Philippines, and so on. And also, I have have another office and an operation in China, and I have staff in France and so on. Dominican Republic, we have a couple of staff, and Mexico and so on. So,
Oh, so you do truly have a blended workforce, some
oh, I do.
traditional staff located multiple places,
Absolutely,
as well as your vendors and suppliers. That's
absolutely.
amazing. So I'm curious about, particularly on the vendors and suppliers side, your business model seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, heavily dependent upon those agreements and relationships and in order to get in order to service your clients. So as a purchaser of their products and services, what is your some of your criteria on evaluating and deciding if a vendor or supplier is going to be a great partner with you, or if you think they don't have a professional enough operation and you need to look elsewhere? Like who would be a good what characteristics, in your opinion, make a great vendor or supplier for
Yeah,
Hotel
so
Emporium?
I have a lot of experience in this place. So mainly like now in this world, world has become such a small place, right? So when we deal with vendors, especially overseas, you got to learn a little bit about their culture and their business practices as well. We cannot, just because we are the buyer, we cannot be arrogant and think, oh, we are going to give you the specifications of the product or the service we need. This is what you need to do. But I'm a little bit of old school in that space. So I have a international sourcing person, head of sourcing, Ash. She's a 10-year veteran in our space now. But prior to that, I used to go to most of our vendors, mostly my uncle. Then he retired. It's just me. So I still, if it's an overseas, even in the US, I still believe in face-to-face meetings at the beginning and spend some quality meetings with these people, right? You can have the best factory, you can have the best product. That doesn't mean they're going to work with you well. So, because it's all about relationships at the end of the day. I know now the people have started working remotely mostly. A lot of newer generations, they don't believe in like face to face meetings, but that's in a way it's a little bit of a sad thing because it is I feel like we are missing out a lot of opportunity because there were times sorry, I'm going kind of off track.
No,
So
no, no, you're good.
to answer your question about the criteria, first we got to know exactly what we need, and we have to be very specific and detail as much as possible when we go to the vendors. And you got to learn their strengths and weaknesses as well and go in there and appreciating what they have and making sure they are comfortable in your space, and we share the knowledge and you come to a conclusion. So once you know, and you have to have a pretty good understanding about your product as well. So those are the stuff. After that, it's pretty much then the teams get involved and you see where you go.
I love that approach because, as you can tell, I'm not a Gen X. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm not a Gen Zer. So
Yeah,
I love the face to face as well.
yeah,
If you can, at least to your point, fit into your schedule, especially when you're starting out a relationship,
yeah,
that kind of helps to cut out all of the craziness, if you will. You build and deepen a relationship. You look someone in their eyes and see, the level of trust. You look around their facilities, and to your point, any sharp person in your industry should be able to assess whether they've gotten their act together or not. And then from then on, if you have to do Zoom calls or whatever, it's cool. But you establish a good foundation. That
yeah.
you're jumping off on the right point. I love that.
Thank, thank
I
you.
know you. And so, how do you all manage your whole distribution process, like getting it to the hotels when they need it, on time? Do they put in requests to you all through some kind of technology, or do you just have some regular agreements to ship X amount of product? How does the business work?
So we are in pretty much over 55 countries and probably 25,000 hotels globally. So our model is a little different. We don't do our own distribution. We work with a group of distributors worldwide, right? Even
Gotcha.
if some large scale distributors who has multiple distribution locations, for example, in Europe and Africa and Middle East, maybe, then another distributor, a few distributors in the US, and certain countries we work exclusively with one distributor, right? So we help gaining the sales with the distributor, and then our work, our flow goes through the distributor to the hotels. They are the ones who are in front of the hotel, getting the forecast, and they'll relate to us, and we'll make sure the supply and the manufacturing process is in time and they get the product on time. So our business model is through distribution. That's why our overheads are less in the US, and I'm able to run through a pretty lean staff in the US. So
That sounds interesting.
yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you had staff in quite a few other countries as well. How challenging has it been to navigate, local and country laws to have staff over there in so many countries? I know I've had global teams before, and there's sometimes labor laws in the U.S. are a lot different than the labor laws in Italy is different than the labor laws in Tokyo. So, how does your team navigate that, and or
So
does
it
your
was
HR staff?
yeah, it was a challenge. Even before we go to another country, sometimes I have some staff in Vegas, Chicago, and Orlando, and so on. Even those, there are certain things, even setting up the payroll is a challenge.
Yeah.
However, when you go to Europe, European couple of staff I have, they work on a consultancy basis, right? They're not direct employees.
Yes.
In our terms, it's like a 1099, right? So
Right.
we pay them, they take care of their taxes and so on. And also in the Asia region, I work with a company called Remote Power Teams, and the great company, family owned business, and they deal with all that. So we
Nice.
hire our staff through them, and it's been an amazing journey with them as well, because we get top quality people for 10% of the cost. Sometimes we incur
Yeah.
here, and very hungry staff sometimes in overseas countries, so
Oh,
it's a blessing.
absolutely.
It's a blessing.
So, for my listeners out there, what Andy's talking about is using, I'm not sure how they characterize themselves, but it's similar to a managed vendor service who actually helps his company manage the external staff or workforce that they use around the world. These are usually individuals that are very well versed in the different laws in different countries and how to pay them, whether it be 1099 or other. But partnering with such firms is a fantastic way to help scale the business without scaling your own internal admin
Sure, sure,
administration of work, I
sure.
meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure they knew that concept. So in your perception, Andy, what is the power of using blended workforces in organizations? What power does that give you when you think about strategy? And then also, what are some blind spots or things people should watch out for if they do use a blended workforces model to get work
Yeah.
done in the company?
So when I think of blended workforce, it's a broad model, right? It
It
depends.
is very
Yeah,
broad.
very broad model. So
Yes,
it depends on which part of the blended force workforce you work with for your particular company or the organization, right? So
sure.
for me, the strengths, because as I said, the world is getting so smaller, there's different types of thinking coming from all around the world, right? Sometimes our main team could be in the US or Mexico or in China. Our thinking pattern is like, one way. We're like this. Then somebody from France or Dubai or from wherever, right? And they can
Right.
give me one point. Hey, our country, more than this refillable dispensers, for example, we like this clay pots for shampoos and stuff. This is truly sustainable, right? Then
Right.
that get your mind thinking, right? Because world is moving so fast and we are caught up in a lot of things on a day-to-day basis. So I love to get that outsider's perspective, because now, like, everybody is working with everybody. It's so easy to get a hold of everybody, and work with teams around the world thanks to the technology. However, the blind spot I will see is some people, because it's so hard to manage somebody's time who lives across the world. So
Yeah.
they can misuse your time, and do other things, and my thing is like, as long as my work gets done, if I'm happy, I'm just going to stick to that. That's nothing else you can do, because that's where the world is heading. Because prior to that, if you're in one office or two offices, it's so easy to get a meeting. You can, with a matter of minutes, You can call a meeting, brainstorm, and go wherever. And
Right.
right now, it's very difficult to do it. You need to spend a lot of time coordinating a Zoom call, the time zones, and all that. And and
Absolutely.
holidays. I work with countries. Sometimes I want to have a global meeting, even with vendors and a customer together, try to figure out a product.
Yeah.
And China, they might say, "Oh, this is the mooncake holiday."
Yes.
Then,
Or it might be a
Europe,
bank holiday for
I
London, right?
exactly, that's the thing. So those
Yeah,
are the blind spots and challenges. But it's a beautiful thing to work together, though.
it is. It
Yeah,
truly is.
yeah.
And can you share a little bit more about your thinking when, Hotel Emporium was smaller and then you decided you all wanted to scale? What made you embrace a blended workforce model?
To scale. So to be honest with you, I think I fell onto it. I because
That's a
our
good thing,
industry.
though.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, being fully transparent, because at the beginning we had to work with international suppliers because of the cost factor of the product. Especially in my space, there was a time USA wasn't competitive at all in manufacturing the guest amenities, and that time either we had to go to Mexico or India or China and find resources, right? So
Right,
we got pushed into it. Then we and all of a sudden our products had some demand in Europe and Middle East and so on. So we got pushed into it. So through that experience, I learned it.
gotcha.
Sorry.
Bless you. Wonderful. Well, it seems to have worked out very well for you all in doing so. Now, as a significant leader in the of the company, what keeps you up at night? Like, where do you see the future of the amenities industry going, or where would you like to see it go?
So what kept me up, instead of keep me up at night, during the pandemic, they passed a law in California where like they banned all the little tubes and the bottles, the plastic bottles in hotel
Oh
rooms.
yes, I saw that.
Past 2023, so everybody went to these big bulk amenities, big bottles. So our top line, either it's a refillable or disposable large bottles. So our top line revenue started, it went so viral so quick. So top line revenue, we saw a steady decline at the beginning.
Oh wow,
That's when I thought, like, so I'm like, there it goes, 20 years of you're building something up. So that's the time I thought, you know what, we have to be creative. We have to surround ourselves with the right people.
right?
And I decided to start innovating products. So because these big bulk bottles, there is the refillable ones, there is a huge issue with the hygiene factor because there's no cleaning.
Yeah,
cle-
that just
there's no-
grosses me out. I gotta
exactly,
say.
there's a lot of cleanliness issues, and nobody really, not nobody, most of the hotels don't really wash the bottles. They keep bottles of the dispensers. So I've seen a lot of female travelers, they carry their own cosmetics, right?
I do. I
So
carry
yeah,
mine.
so which is a sad thing. And so during that time I decided, you know what, we have to be the game changer in this industry. I don't want to be another number.
Yeah.
So we started inventing products, and I can proudly say within the next, before the end of the year, one of the innovations are coming. It's a huge market gap we had in this space. So we are trying to fill this with some technology in it, and
Ooh.
then a couple of other products along the same lines will come out within the next 9 months or so.
Oh, amazing. I can't wait to see what
Yeah,
these are. I don't
uh,
want you to put it out there before you're ready so your
yeah,
competitors don't jump on it. But
there you
gosh,
go.
that sounds exciting because as a traveler, I've traveled to over 35 countries. I know you've traveled more than me, but it just creeps me out when there's a bulk one there. I would rather use individuals, and I always travel with my own because you never know. So if you can find a solution to that on behalf of all, I'll say the women out there, we would love that.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, it's on the way. It's on the
It's
way.
on the way. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, one of the things we always love to ask our guests relates to the research that we did that I wrote a book about. And it's all about leadership execution. And even in blended workforces, there's got to be a strong leader or multiple leaders that kind of lead companies, both your internal employees and your external staff and support. So it does apply. But we love to ask them which of the pillars or tactics that we talk about in the book really resonated with them. And you were so kind to share that leading with strategic decision making jumped out for you. And for my listeners out there, leading with strategic decision making is all about making good decisions yourself as a leader or leading a good decision making process with your teams based on your top goals and priorities. So, curious minds want to know, Andy, why did leading with strategic decision making really resonate for you?
So, at a very young age, I have always been a leader since I was a kid. That was my personality,
Yeah.
and at a very young age, I realized your yes or no answer, right, could go a long way, especially when you become a head of a company. Like there's a lot of employees depends on you. It Anytime you say yes or no, or let me think about it, it has a lot of weight on it because certain decisions could maybe destroy your company or take your company to the next level. It could be a simple yes, could be the biggest opportunity. It could be the worst decision you ever made. Or saying no to a product, could be the worst decision you make to a product or a service or an opportunity, investment. It could be anything. So that's why I thought it was pretty fascinating to think through that thing. And so that's probably the main reason my being a leader, why that thought process is super important for me.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I can imagine with so many suppliers and distributors, thinking through how they're working with your company and making joint decisions with them that will be best not only for your company but the clients you are serving is very critical to ongoing success with the hotels.
Yes,
I would imagine.
absolutely. It's like one big family.
It is. I can
Yeah.
imagine. Well, my last question for you, Andy, is for you personally. What does it take for you to lead at the top of your game?
I feel like we need a lot of personal space being leaders, especially being an inventor, leader. So sometimes you need to take few minutes or few hours of the day just for yourself.
I agree. Yes.
And whether it could be watching TV or it could be going for a swim, walk, talking to your friends, whatever gives you that calm mind. Some people like meditation, right? So I try to take my own time by going to the gym, or few times a year, twice a year, we do like a 3 day. Couple of my closest friends around the world we do a boys trip, right? And
Nice,
most of
nice.
them are entrepreneurs as well, so we bounce off our each ideas, and and that keeps me going because that break gives me, it's like the fuel or the battery charge you need, and that keeps us going. So that's what I do.
That is fantastic. I have a couple of groups like that too, that just re-energizes me and gets me back once I'm back to work. With fantastic, ideas to test with my staff. So I love that you do that as well.
Thank you, Karen.
Well, Andy, we're going to have a lot of information about you and Hotel Emporium in our show notes. But I always love to give guests some airtime to make sure we let our listeners know where they can find you and more information about Hotel Emporium and anything else you want to share.
Most of our information is on the Hotel Emporium website, hotelemporium.com, or on my LinkedIn page, Andy De Silva. So they can follow me through there.
Fantastic. Well, it looks like we're going to have to wrap up for today, Andy, but it was an absolute pleasure to have you as a guest. And we really appreciate your gifted time of spending with us and talking about blended workforce.
Thank you so much, Karen. Truly appreciate it.
Oh,
You have a good
awesome.
day.
Thank
Okay.
you. You too.
Bye.
And thank you, listeners, as well, for joining another episode of the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. We know there are literally billions of other podcasts out there, so we do not take your time lightly. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast and share with just one friend, because by doing so, we all together can get smarter about blended workforces at work. Thanks a ton and see you next week. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you again for listening to the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at blendedworkforcesatwork.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand, contract, fractional, or project basis. Huge thanks to the SDL production and editing team for a job well done. Bye for now.